All right, now it's time for us to talk about collections in Dart. What is this thing called collections? It's not a collections of stamp or exotic coins or anything of that sort. But collections is just a way in which we can actually collect or put together certain types of information into bigger buckets, if you will. All right, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's go ahead and really start from the beginning. All right, so we talked about variables, so we know what variables are. As we said before, I said there are small buckets in memory where we can actually put variables, things that vary, right? So that's what we say, hold values one value at a time. But you notice that there's times when we don't want to just hold one variable or one type at a time. We want to be able to expand our wings and perhaps put a collection or a bunch of values of the same type in one place, right? That's when collections come to play. So there's different kind of collections. There's lists, maps, and so many other, but these two are the most used in Dart. Now, if you're coming from a different language, you probably have heard of array. In Dart, array and list are pretty much the same thing. That's the reason why we don't even have an array per se, right? We do have an array, but we call them lists. Okay, perfect. So that's it. Let's talk about lists in Dart. List is just a container that contains ordered group of values or objects. A good example would be, for instance, we have here inside of these square brackets, we have 12, comma, 1, 9, and 9. So this would be considered a list or secretly an array, okay, if you're coming from a different language, but that's not a problem. And the interesting thing here is that when we create lists have to contain same type. So you can't have a list that has numbers and then you can add a string and then a boolean. That doesn't work like that, because the idea here with list is to have a container where you can put a lot of different items but of the same type. In this case, in this example, we have a list of containing integers or numbers in general. Okay, now the way things are organized in a list is that they are organized in indexes. So the first item is contained inside of an index 0. So if you want to get 12, we would have to point to index 0. And then of course the second one would be index 1 and so forth. But we can also add non-integer or not numbers items inside of our list, right? As long as the list contains the same type, it doesn't matter what we put. We can put objects, strings, and so many other things, right? In this case, we still have the same thing here. We have the index 0, which contains hey, and the index 1 contains now. And we can keep adding as many items inside of our list as we want. Now you notice all of the items are indeed delimited by comma. That's a very important distinction. So we know that index 0 ends where the comma begins and the index 1 starts afterwards. That's how a list is created, and that's how a list contains all of these information, all of these values or objects. Okay, and the next one we are going to talk about is going to be maps. Now, map is essentially what we call a dictionary. A dictionary has a key, values, pairs. What that means is the following. So look at this. Now notice the syntax is a little bit different. Now instead of square brackets, we have squiggly lines or brackets in this case. And you notice we have the key. Okay, in this case is first. Then we have colon and James. And then we have comma. So now the first line there, we have a key. And then we have the value, which is James. So if we want to get James, guess what? We go via first, which is the key. Okay, and of course then we have second, colon, bond as the value. We can do the same thing, of course, if we want to add the keys as numbers. We can say 1, in this case, is going to be the key, and the value is going to be James, and so forth. Very simple idea here, yet a very important one. So let's go ahead in the next videos explore into more details the lists and the maps in Dart. Perfect. I'll see you next.